Hello, this is Soundout here, and today we're going to be doing a tier list for the main Kamen Rider belts. This is similar to the Ultraman one, and in fact, I got a comment asking if I could do one for the main Kamen Rider belts. And I thought since last week I had done, this whole three-part series covering the base package of the complete selection modification Deca driver, it would be an appropriate time to cover the main Kamen Rider belts in a tier list. So like always, this is an S tier to a D tier because nothing ever is going to fall into an F tier for me. And I actually think this should be pretty interesting because I've never actually thought about like my personal rankings of these belts, and this should be pretty good. So let's begin. So first up we have the Typhoon, which was used by Kamen Rider Ichigo and Nigo in the original Kamen Rider series. This one is classic, it's iconic, it's got kind of like that really sleek design with a little turbine in the middle. I love the way it looks. It's such a iconic look and design, and it fits with kind of the wind-themed powers that Ichigo and Nigo had. So this one's going to go in the A tier, absolutely. Next up, in that same vein, we've got the Double Typhoon, which is Kamen Rider V3's belt. Now, V3 is my favorite Kamen Rider. Doesn't mean this is my favorite belt, but it is pretty cool. It takes what the Typhoon was doing and, of course, Double Typhoon. It does have the two different, pinwheels inside of it, which is really cool. This one's also an A tier. It's going to go above Ichigo. With a lot of these simpler belts, I noticed this with the Ultraman as well, as I was like, the simpler belts, there's less to talk about. Now, that being said, I don't like the Rydle too much. So Kamen Rider X's belt is kind of strange because it's got the pinwheel sort of center, and then it's got the Rydle stick that pulls out of it, which is what causes it to spin. It's okay. It's really awkward. I think, we'll see better belts later on that do a sort of similar idea but more symmetrical, specifically Amazon's. But the idea of having the weapon just kind of pulling out of the side is cool. It's also like non-logical because the Rydle stick / Rydle whip / Rydle sword, it does a lot of different things. It's much larger than what's in the belt, but that doesn't bother me because it is a fantasy setting in a lot of ways. But overall, the design's okay, but it's going to go in the C tier. It just doesn't have like the visual spark I think they're looking for. It definitely is more of a function over form kind of design. Definitely more of that. Now, for Amazon's Gigi bracelet, the thing is that, Amazon doesn't transform with his belt. His belt is actually just a rope, the condole rope. So this is kind of interesting because it's the first rider to, and I think still the only main rider. Yeah, I think the only main rider who has an actual device that isn't his belt. It's actually the armlet. There's no belt component involved at all with the transformation. You don't even see him activate anything on this. He's just wearing it. That's the source of his powers. He can't remove it until he forms it with the Gaga armlet. So the Gigi armlet, I like it. I think the design is neat. Part of the thing that's always kind of bugged me is how it kind of sticks out from the edge. I know it does eventually link up with the Gaga armlet, which looks even more awkward. But I like it sort of like, Aztecian design. You do any kind of Aztecian or Mayan-like design in your characters that are supposed to be coming from South America, always will be a plus for me. And Amazon's got that. So this one's going to go in the A tier. I don't think it's as good as the Typhoon, but I like the simplicity of it. Speaking of simplicity, the Electra from Stronger. The Electra. Some of these names are weird. But the Electra from Stronger, this is interesting because he doesn't necessarily do anything with the belt, much like the others. A lot of Showa writers, they mostly do their poses. They don't really necessarily do a lot of that. With Stronger, he sparks his arms because his arms are like metal coils, and that's what really powers him up. But you do see the belt flash during the Stronger charge up sequence, so it does fit that. I like the design of this. I actually have one of the old Popanika like basic toy versions of it that's actually more show accurate than the electronic one. I think it's great. I think this one, I also do love Stronger. I'm going to put it right above Typhoon, just because it has that look and that spark to it without necessarily overdoing anything. It's also a lot smaller and more compact. I think the Typhoon is a little too big in a lot of ways. Okay, so next we have the Tornado Belt from Skyrider. This is one that's kind of going for the Typhoon look, but it sort of tries to amplify it by adding the levers on the side for the sailing jump, which only gets used for like part of the show anyways because budgets. But Skyrider, you know, he can fly. That's why he's Skyrider. So I think the levers on the side are cool. I think the actual belt itself's not that interesting. So we're going to put it in the C tier, below X. It's got that function over form sort of thing. Now with Super 1, we've got the Cycloader, which I actually really like. I was trying to find a better photo of it, but and sometimes I end up just screenshotting the rider's waist here. The Cycloader is pretty cool because, you know, you have, like, if you look at the picture I got, it's kind of closed up, but when Skyrider or Super 1 does this transformation, he flips his hands and it slides open. So it's got actually kind of a more dynamic function, where a lot of the belts we'd seen to this point were just they spun or they didn't do anything, like in the case of like Stronger just flashed. Super 1's belt actually having that slide open feature, definitely a plus. That one's gonna go also an A tier, probably. I'm gonna put it right below V3 because I think the Double Typhoon is a little bit more dynamic, but just the overall design's a little more sleek. But I really like the Cycloader. Okay, so then for Zaycross, he just has the Zaycross belt. This is because he was only in a TV show and they never made a toy of this. All this ended up doing was holding ninja tools for him outside of just being a belt, and that's fine. It's not that exciting. It's gonna hang out here with Skyrider. It's again Skyrider X and Zaycross. Their function over form. They're okay. They're just not that exciting. Now we get to one that actually had a major toy release. That was actually, I think, designed with a toy idea, and that is Black's Vital Charger. Love this thing in the show. You know, it's funny because people call it the Kingstone, which is technically correct because it does have the Kingstone inside of it. But that's just the stone inside of it. So like when Black does his like Kingstone flash thing, that's because he's lighting up the Kingstone inside of it. But it actually is called the Vital Charger. Things you learn. But with this belt, I love the 80s look of it. It's asymmetrical, but kind of in a cool way. The way it flashes and reacts is pretty awesome, and honestly, it's got that great sort of design that a lot of the Showa belts have. I don't know if I'm going to put it in A, though. I think I'm going to put it in B, and the only reason why it's going in B is because it doesn't do anything besides, like, fancy light effects, but it is pretty cool. It is pretty sweet. Okay, so now we got Black RX's Sunriser. The Sunriser... You know, this thing has multiple forms, which is pretty cool. As is, it's kind of like the Kingstone, or the Vital Charger, but it spins in opposite directions. And I always like that in the show they showed like a close, it's like a cutaway shot. Like you see the belt, and then it's got a cutaway shot, and then it like shows the internals, and the original toy like had a flip down panel for that. I think it's cool. I love that the Revel cane comes out of it. I'll actually, you know, with X you pull it from the side. With Zaycross, you open the door and then you just get like ninja weapons. This you got kind of like a, you know, pulling it straight out, which is really cool and dynamic. And I think that gives it a huge boost. So this one's also going to go in B, right above Black. And again, this is all personal preference. I'm not like ranking these on some objective grade curve. This is just like what I like and what I'm looking for. Okay, so Shin. So Shin from Shin Kamen Rider Prologue, which has nothing to do with Shin Kamen Rider, the Hideki Anno movie. All right, so your dad is like, I'm a scientist and I want to learn genetic modification. Hey, son, can you be my science experiment? And the son's like, sure, Dad, anything for you. And then you become a giant mutant bug man. I think there are better ways to become a Kamen Rider. This one's going in the D tier. Okay, Zeto. Zeto's is weird because there was no toys. Even though it was a co-production with Bandai, there's barely any Zeto toys. Zeto, he just has this little gem, and it flashes, and then he turns into Zeto. Really cool looking transformation sequence. If you've never seen Kamen Rider Zeto. I don't think this is any that good, though. As a belt, it sucks. It's going to go right above Shin, because I don't think anything is going to be worse than your dad genetically modified you into a grasshopper mutant. That one's taking the cake for probably the worst. Jay actually did have a buckle toy. It's basically just another little stone. Again, really like Zeto and J. They're like two of my favorite rider things, but this one's going to go in D. Has a little bit more form to it, so it's going to go above. All right, so now we hit the Heisei era proper, at least the TV era of the Heisei era, not just like the movie era down here. I love all three of those movies, specifically Zeto and J, but their transformations. Okay, Kuga's Arkle. So the thing with the Arkle is that I think this is like, you know, it definitely takes some design cues from the Typhoon. It's got that centerpiece that like spins and lights up. I love the alternate color options. I realized I picked the blue one, not the red one here, but you know, which isn't the default, but you get the different colors. It powers up for the rising forms, which is just really cool. And yeah, I mean, I really like it. I think this one's an S tier. I'm kind of sad I don't own the CSM for this one because it is such a cool design. But yeah, I think it's going to stay an S. Looking ahead, I think this one's going to stay an S. But yeah, I love the sleekness. I love the simplicity of it. It really does come together quite nicely. Okay, so here's the Alter Ring, which I'm still waiting on my CSM Alter Ring. Hopefully it's coming this month or next month. The Alter Ring from Agito does everything that the Arkle does, but way better. And this is also an opinion I have of the shows. I love Kuga. I absolutely do. For the longest time, I was like, this is my favorite Heisei rider. Then I really watched Agito as an adult, and I was like, oh, wow, I actually really love Agito more. That's not a, that's a hot take, I think, or something. I hope it's not that controversial. I really do love Agito. I think it brought a lot of the elements that Kuga had going for it and then amplified it by sort of expanding the character roster a lot. And doing some really interesting stuff. I really like the actual mysteries in the show are pretty good. Now the Alter Ring, much like with Kuga, the Alter Ring can transform with the Dragon Nail, and you get alternate forms. Now with Kuga, he just did different. Like he mentally was like, I want to do Dragon form, I want to do Pegasus form, I want to do Titan form, and so you get that motion. He does his Shohenshin to switch forms. Cool stuff. Love it. Agito has a bit more distinction where it feels more intentional, more than just he's thinking about it, which is that Agito, he does his transformation and he hits both buttons to turn into Agito ground form. Then you'll hit one side to get flame, and then the sword will come out from the belt, sort of like RX's belt, or you'll hit the other side and get storm, and then you'll get the halberd out of the middle of the belt. So it kind of brings in the elements of, it's got sort of that Ichigo element, it's got the Kuga element, but it's also got the RX element too. So you get kind of like this nice mixture of rider ideas. And then when it goes to burning form, and then the whole thing of burning form has to experience sunlight to become shining form, that sort of thing, I think, is just really cool. And I love when the weapons sort of appear from the belt. And also the Trinity form, and he does both form changes at once. So I think this one's going in S tier above Kuga. I absolutely love it. I really, really want my CSM to show up. I'm really excited. I'm glad it'll be fixed, because Japanese release had problems. But anyways, next up we have the V-Buckle. I think the V-Buckle is still unmatched into how many riders, unique riders, use this belt. Because I think we're up to, what was it? It's 14? 13? Wait, no. You gotta remove Odin, add Abyss. 13. There's 13 unique riders that use the silver V-Buckle. This one's also familiar to Dragon Knight fans as well. I like the simplicity in Ryuki of just sliding the deck in and then the transformation happens. But I also like the dynamicism when they used in Dragon Knight where the deck spun. But overall, I mean, when it comes down to it, this is a very simple transformation item. All you do is put the deck into a buckle, and then you can pull the cards out of it for the visors, which were the real toy appeal. I think it works. I don't know if I'd put it any higher than A, though. And that's because it is a little too simple. That's all it does. It just does the transformation and then holds the cards. It works. It's simplistic. I love it. It's still A, but I don't think it's going to go into S because the options that Kuga and Agito provide are much more interesting. Okay, so next up we have the Faiz gear for the Faiz driver plus the weapons. So for Faiz, the technology thing, this one's kind of cool because you got a cell phone, you punch in the code, you call it, and then you put it in and close it down. Really dynamic stuff. This got used by a bunch of people. Fai's gear got around. I like it. I think it's a cool design. I don't think I love it because I've never gone ahead and bought one of the toy versions of it. Also because I haven't finished Fai's. That's a personal problem. Sometimes it gets too melodrama and then I drop it and then I don't come back to it for years. But anyways, I think the Fai's gear is cool. I think I'm gonna put it in B though. It does have that really cool like dynamic action of it going in and turning. But I think it gets good to go in B. I think it's gonna go in B. All right, blade. We're just looking at the blade buckle, because if we do the blade rouser, I know I just picked the picture of the CSM, but the blade rouser is where all the action is. The blade buckle is just, it turns a card up. So you pull it, it flips. Again, like the simplicity latch like Ryuki, but unlike Ryuki, it doesn't do anything else after. Ryuki does give you that's where your cards are held. The cards are held in the rouser. So the blade buckle doesn't do anything. This one's gonna go in C tier. No disrespect to anything design-wise. I think a lot of the stuff in Blade is fantastic. The belt, just not in one of them. Okay, I kind of forgot about Hibiki when I was saying that Amazon was the only one not to use a belt for transformation. Whoops. The Hibiki Onsa Onkaku is honestly, like, it's cool. It's a tuning fork. I like it. Hibiki notoriously, or infamously, or famously, was not developed as a Kamen Rider. It became a Kamen Rider later. So a lot of it used different elements. And I think I like this more than just having a belt. I think Hibiki having that distinction of having a tuning fork that you can just like hit and it reverberates and it works with the sound elements. Same goes for like Ibuki using a flute and Todoroki using a guitar string. I really like that Hibiki keeps that sort of musical element all the way through all of his stuff. And I like that uniqueness. And in fact, I think it's going to be like the Gigi armlet, where it's going to go up pretty high. I'm going to keep it probably above stronger. I really like it, and I would like to see Bandai do a CSM. I know that's like I think it's the only like Heisei Rider, like Phase 1 Heisei they haven't done yet. But the Hibiki Onsa, it's cool. It's cool. I like it. I don't know what else to say besides I like it. Okay, the Kabuto Zector for Kamen Rider Kabuto is, again, simplistic but really dynamic. You've got this thing where you have like the flying Zector, goes into the belt, you pull the horn and it does the cast off bit. Really cool, really dynamic. I don't know where I'd rank it though. I feel like A tier's gotten too packed. Because I feel like it's an A tier belt, I really do. I mean, I got some others that are going to be going to fill out the lower tiers. You know what? I think for Kabuto it is going to be an A tier. I think it's going to go right below Hibiki. But that is a pretty solid belt. Okay, next up we have Den-O. Now Den-O, the Den-O belt. I forget it's called just the Den-O belt. This one I like as a toy. As a show item, I don't totally love it. And I'll tell you why. Because, you know, I know, again, fantasy situation, I talk about not worrying about, like, the logistics too much. But it's kind of like, you know, I know it fits with Momotaros' personality, but, like, every character suddenly summons the... Like, so basically how this one works, you hit a button, you swipe the ride pass, because it's like a ticket, you know, like a train ticket, and you have a pass case. You swipe it across the belt, does the transformation. Then, when you do the final attacks, you swipe it again. Now, the thing is that when it comes to the characters in the show, they sort of, their ticket, the rider pass appears, they scan it, and they toss it away, and then it just comes back magically. It's kind of annoying, just from a personal standpoint. I'm like, and everybody does it, like, not just Momotaros. Momotaros is the kind of guy to just toss it away and go pick it up later. Other characters like, you know, Urotaros, I don't know why he's tossing his pass away. I think, you know, while it stylistically works, over the years, I'm like, man, why do they keep tossing that rider pass? Why does that thing not just have a holster on the side? Like they could, you know, tap it for the charge up, holster it, and then go do the attack. That would have, you know, kind of added to it. Because as is, it's simplistic, it's very sleek. I like the way that, you know, the whole train connection design. It's like when they whip it around their waist and it connects. Really cool. I like that the belt doesn't magically appear. I always like belts when the belts are still there. Kind of just as a neat thing. Again, I don't know where they're hiding it, but that's not important at the moment. But in terms of like, you know, the belt, I like all that stuff, but that pass thing bugs me enough that it's gonna go in B, right below Fies. I wish the pass had a holster. I feel like, you know, they also missed out on selling a toy there. Okay, next up we have Kiva. Now Kiva, the Kivat belt, which has Kivat Bat the Third, love this. Excellent stuff. Kind of reminds me of Amazon and Hibiki, where the device is a little separate. You know, the Kiva Bat biting into Wataru's hand and then him putting it on the belt, all dynamic stuff. The Fuessels having holsters, so all of them are there so he can do his different forms. Kiva as a show is not my favorite because I think the middle third just got wrecked by really terrible romance subplots that didn't work. But I love the aesthetics of the vampires and the werewolves and the monsters. All that really worked for me. So for me, this is going to be an S tier right below Kuga. I love it. One of these days I will own a toy of that. One of these days I think I will, because I do love that design a whole lot. Okay, hey, can anyone guess that I love the Deca driver? I not only have reviewed the CSM1, I've reviewed the CSM2 in 3 videos. I also own the Neo. I also would totally buy a Neo CSM. I love this. I love Decade. It's a show that initially I was like, this is weird. The more I've watched it, the more I've appreciated what it was trying to do. It was like, oh, we couldn't get the actors back. Let's tell alternate stories. Much better than just having empty suits with replacement voice actors. It's my thing I don't like. Like, don't do that. I get that if the actor died or something, but like, it just feels weird and hollow when you just have a lineup of people and none of them were actually there. Because Kamen Rider is very much a story of humanity and people. It's very tied in. Anyways, Decade's going in S tier, right below Agito, surprisingly, but I love it. Deca driver, top tier stuff. You know, and just when I'm talking about like suit things, I know sometimes, you know, it can sort of seem hypocritical. I'm like, oh my god, look at all these Ultra Galaxy fights, and like, they don't always have their original voice actors. But the difference is that Ultraman are beings. So if you just see their Ultraman suit without the host, it's still just that being, because they are like alien beings. With Kamen Rider, it's so much about the human condition and the human experience of the struggles of life and hard choices and such, that when you see just a costume show up and it doesn't even have the right voice, you're like, that doesn't feel right. And that's why, because it's, you know, Kamen Rider is very much grounded in people making decisions. That's why, like, when Shin shows up to crossovers, I like it, because it's nice that Shin gets some acknowledgement, but his dad turned him into a grasshopper mutant. I don't think that's the guy who's just like ready to join whatever fight the writers are doing. Okie dokie, Heisei Phase 2, let's go. Double Driver, I think I love it. It was my first Kamen Rider belt toy. It's gonna go above Kiva, for nostalgia's sake. I love the Double Driver. I also love that the toy came with everything you needed for the main forms. I love the mixing and matching. It's because there's only 6 components as opposed to like something like Build we'll talk about in a moment that had like 60. It's simple, it's easy, I love it. I don't have any complaints. I don't have any complaints about the Double Driver. That one's fantastic. Okay, the O's Driver. I'm notoriously the guy that was like, I liked O's. I didn't love O's. I don't hate O's, I just liked it. So I actually didn't own this for years. I think the O's Driver is cool. I like the metal holder on the side. It doesn't hold enough metals in my opinion, but I like that you can get the metals. You know, the combinations are infinite with when you have all the core metals. I love that the scanner's on the side. Again, just like how Den-O doesn't have a holster for it. O's Driver's pretty good. Gonna put it in B tier. I just like the others more. Forzay Driver. I just did a whole retrospective on Forzay. You think I love it? I love it. I wouldn't put this in S tier if I didn't love it so much. So I love the Astro Switch gimmick. I think it's an ugly belt. It's an ugly belt. I love the gimmick. It's gonna go mid-A. It's gonna go mid-A because I love the Astro Switches. There also was just so many throwaways. The belt is kind of a giant mess of technology. I want to put it in S tier because of my love of Forzay, but my rationale is saying A tier. Actually, my rationale is saying B tier. You know what? That's probably the most I've moved a spot in any of these tier lists. The Forzay Driver, I love it, but I also don't love it. It's a giant hunk of technology hanging off your belt. All right, Wizard Driver. Now the Wizard Driver, love this one. Simplistic, easy. It goes with the magic theme. It's got the ring holder. You know what? No complaints. This one's going in S tier. It's going right below Keyvat because I think the hand is not as aesthetically pleasing as a giant bat. So we'll go with that. Sengoku Driver. Sengoku Driver. I never owned this. I think it's cool. Goes with a simplistic theme. It works with a bunch of different riders because you can put different faceplates on it, the different lock seeds. You slash the knife down, it cuts the fruit. Goes with the theme really well. Overall, probably put it in a B tier. It does look weird. It really does look weird. Okay, Drive Driver. This is technically a sentient being Mr. Belt. I love the wrist brace. I love that the shift cars go under the wrist and it coordinates with the belt. Love that. Really cool stuff. Love Drive as well. This one's also a B tier. Higher than the Sengoku Driver. And the only reason why is because it's cool, but it almost looks a little over-designed, if that makes any sense. Gamer Driver. So Xaid, I liked Xaid. Again, didn't love Xaid. Liked Xaid. Thought the Gashats were cool. I like that you could put two different ones in. Really dynamic stuff. The opening door. But much like Forza, much like Gaim, much like Drive, this one's kind of an eyesore because of how big it is. It's just this huge brick that just sits on your waist. This one's going to go... You know what? It's going to go above Deno because there's a holster. I'm holding that over Deno. What was the Ghost Driver called? Oh, it was called the Ghost Driver. It's easy to predict names. I didn't watch Ghost, but every time I've seen Ghost in the movie, I'm like, he's cool, and then I hear that he's not as cool in the show, which is sad. Ghost Driver's okay. I like that it's got kind of like this cool, like, you pull the handle thing. But why is it so big if it only holds one gimmick item? That thing should have had like 3 slots. It's so huge. It's so huge. That one's going in C. It's got more functionality than the blade buckle, so it's going high C. Yeah, that's going to happen. Amazon's Driver. No surprise. I love the Amazon's Driver. I have the CSM of the alpha version, which is what I use the picture of, even though it's not technically the base version. Love that they carried those around in duffel bags. Like, they're like, yep, this belt is huge. It doesn't magically appear. I love that you can pull weapons out of it, and they're sort of like oily stuff because it's like organic. Like the weapon parts are organic, so it kind of explains how that works. It works just like X's belt, except there's like not a technological reason behind it. It's like a techno-organic thing. Love the design of it, the simplicity, just the overall look. I just love the way it's used. That one's an S tier for me. Yeah, it's going to go right below Kuga. It's going to go right above Kuga. Sorry to the Kuga fans. I love the belt, but I love the Amazon's Driver more. I really do. I mean, that is absolutely no joke. I don't love the Neo Amazon's Driver as much, though. Okay, Build Driver. Not going to lie, kind of don't like this one. The cranking motion was cute. It made the show slow down because they don't start cranking faster. The cranking also seems a little bit redundant. I'm not totally in love with it. I think there was way too many bottles. It just overly complicated. It's going to go above X's Rydal. All right, Geo. Geo, I actually like this one. I did get Geo. This one's cool because you put a watch in, hit the button, spin it. Excellent stuff. Really dynamic. This one's going to go in an A tier for me. The toy's glitchy as heck, but we're not talking about the toys. We're talking about the toys, or the designs. That one's going to go in A. 01 Driver. Totally love this. I own every Progrise key. I own this belt. Absolutely great. The whole scanning feature, the whole insert, the dynamic slide, the whole scanning feature again. Love it. Excellent stuff. S tier, above Kuga. I think the 01 Driver is great. I really do. Seiken Sword Driver from Saber. I for some reason enjoy watching Saber and then completely forget I watched it as soon as I'm done watching anything about it. I think the 3-book combo thing is cool. I like the sword. The mass shifting is annoying. I almost wish it just transformed with the sword like the rest of the riders. I don't know why we necessarily needed the belt. But it is cool. I think it's a great design. You know, it definitely could have been a lot worse. I'm going to put it in low A, actually. Kind of neat. Revi Driver. I'm going to double check that it is the Revi Driver so I don't mess things up. The Revi Driver. This one is for Revi and Vice. I like the concept. They're like, hey, we're doing stamps. So you activate the stamp, put it down, you put it in the other side, you pull it, and then the stamp symbol flips around. Cool and dynamic. Yeah, that one's going to go in high B. I think it's going to go high B. I didn't want to seem like I was rushing through these, but I realized I was talking too much about the Heisei stuff and harping on Deno. That's my tier list. If I ran through some of those a little quick, ask me for deeper thoughts. But honestly, I do like a lot of the Kamen Rider belts. As you can see, like D tier was just made up by... Look, there's nothing worse than your dad turning you into a grasshopper mutant, okay? None of these other designs could be ever blocky or gaudy enough to be worse than that. But honestly, you know, it comes down to it. I do love Kamen Rider belts. I own everything in that top tier except for Kuga and Kiva. So that gives me kind of an idea of I should probably go after those. And yeah, I mean, Kamen Rider's got a lot of great designs. And even when I'm ranking some of them lower, they're still good on their own. So that's the list. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button, hit subscribe, notification bell. Check a link in the description to Hobby Link Japan and support the channel if you make an order through there. They have a lot of Kamen Rider stuff. If you order through the link, you will get to support this channel directly because I am now an HLJ affiliate. So check that out if you would. And check out Hero Club at hero-club.com and my awesome graphic designer on Twitter at darkclaw643. And until next time, this is Soundout saying goodbye.